To begin, this is a live interactive session. My ideas are not cast on stone. This is what I'd planned to get on board as soon as I got into office if you guys would have given me the opportunity to serve as the Secretary General for the Kenya Basketball Federation, but that has not been the case. The federation is not going to hold its elective AGM this year. They're just going to have an AGM. That's something that I can't control. I've always believed that for the things that I can't control, I don't give them too much focus. What I can control is to continue pushing for what I believe is right, what I believe is genuine, and this is just part of what I'd planned to do just basically before the elections if they were to be held. So I was going to do a gala dinner where I would invite every other single stakeholder, the team managers, the representatives of commissions, and everybody to just come for this gala dinner and watch what I have to present. Of course, I can't do this in under 1 hour. I've broken it down. This is the first bit of what I want to talk about. Basketball issues are a lot, so we can't finish all that in under 1 hour. So allow me to just give you the first bit of what I believe can at least form the basis of the discussions that are going to be had in the AGM that's going to be held on the 23rd of April. As you may know, AGMs are very important meetings in any single federation or institutions because it allows you to track your progress upon which or on the things that you had decided in the previous meeting, and also just to put in place different policies to see to it that you implement what you believe can change the game moving forward. So with that said, I'd love to basically get straight into it. As I go, I'll try and multitask, get who's ever commenting on the live. Remember, it's a live interactive session. What I'm saying is not cast on stone. You're open to give your idea and basically talk about or jump in on those issues that I'm highlighting as well. So yeah, I think we can get to it. For this first session of this live broadcast, I've broken down the issues that affect us as a federation into 3 modules. And the 3 modules are visibility, league structure, and the KBF constitution. There are a lot of things that fall in those 3 modules. That is visibility, I repeat, visibility, league structure, and KBF constitution. So I'll start with visibility. So the unfortunate sad truth about the Kenyan state of basketball and affairs is that it's dead. Basketball is dead, and this is something that we do not want to accept ourselves. We've not been very intentional about creating conversations around the same and see to it that this game is taken back to where it used to be a couple of years ago. And when I say basketball is dead, I say it with so much conviction because I played in this league well over 10 years ago. And I remember when I was just coming off of high school and joining Strathmore University for my scholarship program, the league was tentatively competitive. But then again, at that point, it wasn't as competitive as it was in the previous years. So basically what that means is that as time has passed by over the couple of years, the game has depreciated in terms of the value of the game. And I believe for a league such as the Kenya Basketball Premier League, the word premier has lost its meaning because the game keeps on depreciating as the years go by. I believe when I stopped playing competitive basketball, I believe 3 or so years ago, the game is not where it used to be, because when I was coming in from high school, I remember we still had Corp Bank playing in the Premier League. They had a fairly good team. We still had the likes of KCB. KCB was experiencing its last years of a good basketball team because their sponsorship had been withdrawn. Just basically all these issues that we're experiencing. So my point is the game has probably lost its value over time, and it contributes to what I'm talking about, visibility. So visibility in this case basically means that how is the game resonating with the immediate stakeholders outside of what the immediate stakeholders are, in the sense that basketball without the immediate players, the people who play in the different tier leagues, and for those who are not necessarily participating in the games and probably accompany those people who come for those very games, it's dead. Like if you take away the people who play in Division 2, Division 1, and the Premier League, and their friends and family members who once in a while come to support them, the game is dead. That means the game's visibility hasn't superseded or surpassed that ceiling where it needs to surpass so that the game is turned into something else. And if that is the case, if we continually keep on depending on the basketball players to fill our stadiums, we keep on depending on the friends of those basketball players to fill in the stadiums, the game is going to suffer, and it will always suffer. We need to get to a point where we move past the players who support the game and their close friends who come to support the game. We need to push the game past that group of people so that it can resonate with people who don't know nothing about basketball, those who just hear about the game, would love to attend, that probably are not in a position to present themselves physically. So that is where the game needs to get to for us to now start probably just realizing those early and slow steps of the game being revolutionized. And I will tell you the cons of the lack of visibility. These are the disadvantages of the game not being as visible as it ought to be. The first one, it's difficult to package a brand or a product that is not necessarily, how can I put this? It's difficult to package a brand and a product around a game that is not visible outside of its immediate fans, which are the players and their friends who come to support. So imagine you're supposed to approach a brand to come in and partner with you guys. Then you get down to discuss the semantics. But when you do a deep down look at the statistics of the people who are affiliated with the game, it's sad, because outside of these people who are playing the game, then it means the brand cannot be pushed to a further audience. And that is one of the disadvantages of not having that visibility. Secondly, attracting and closing broadcast deals becomes very difficult, because when you are structuring a broadcast deal with any entity or any media house or any partner, they need the CBD in Nairobi. So it's very hard for you to structure broadcast deals, and the game needs a broadcast deal because you need to tap into people who cannot present themselves to the gym, who cannot present themselves to the various locations where we hold our Premier League games, where we hold our Div 1, Div 2 NBA games. You need to be in a position to reach those people. So that is where the broadcast comes in. When you're able to structure broadcast deals, that is where you now reach and tap into those eyeballs. Now, it becomes very difficult if you don't have that visibility as a sport for you to structure those broadcast deals. And lastly, it's close to impossible to create a lasting impression. And I mean this because when you look at a sport like, say, for example, rugby, I'll use rugby as a reference a lot in this because they've made strides and they're considerable and good strides in their sport. So it becomes close to impossible to create a lasting impression, because lasting impressions are created when people who are not affiliated with the game or the sport interact with it for the first time. They don't have to interact with it at the gym, but somebody somewhere who probably didn't even know that basketball is broadcasted in the country, one day, one afternoon, they tune in into the KBF platforms or whichever media house you would have partnered with to bring this broadcast, and they're like, wow, this is something that I've been missing. So when you create that lasting impression, it has a ripple effect onto other people who are linked to that one person who would have gotten that, because word spreads like fire. And the next thing you know, they're excited about the game and they're like, you know what? I think we need to make our way to the gym so that we get this live action, and slowly you now start realizing all these things that I'm talking about. It's all about the eyeballs. And I believe that is the core center of the visibility. And that is the key and one of the major problems with KBF, is because our fan base and the people who support the game, it's centered on somebody who's probably playing Division 1 and they play in the early hours of the day, say between 8 to 12, and they just decide, you know what, instead of going home let me just walk to Nyayo or get transportation to Nyayo to now come and watch the Women Premier League and the Men's League. So in the event that that clique of people decide, you know what, no, today I'm done with my game, I'm tired, going somewhere else, I'm not going to watch the other games, then the league suffers because we are fully dependent on that crowd to create excitement for the league. So when they have other things to do, often or not people are going to have other things to do, we suffer in terms of generating revenue for the federation through get sales, through basically broadcast deals, and that is why visibility is very, very important. So that's the context of the first module. Now let's get to the solutions. The first solution to solving this issue of lack of visibility is, one, all these years, KBF has never had a simple thing as a website. Can you imagine? KBF has never had a simple thing as a website. If you take a deep down look into the semantics and procedures that go into getting a website set up, that's pretty simple. I mean, and the charges are not as crazy as somebody would want to believe. I believe the last time I was paying for my website to be hosted on a domain, it costed me about 3,500 shillings, and this was a cost for a whole year. I haven't yet renewed it, but I paid 3,500 shillings. That's for the domain to be hosted, and that's an annual fee. Now, once you pay that, the next fee that you're going to incur as a federation resonates between, say, about 25,000 shillings to about 50,000 shillings. This is enough to get you a credible and steady website. So again, just on the cost of putting this up, and it begs the question why the federation has never been intentional about creating a website where people can access material that is basketball related. So you look at a cost of 3,500 shillings for hosting, then you come again to a cost of, say, between 25,000 to about 50,000. You wonder again, this is money that the federation easily makes on a normal day, like on a Saturday, and having a website as a federation is, you see, people think making money on social media is easy. It's not easy. It's not as easy as people think. But you need to take the first steps of doing that. And the advantage for KBF in this instance for having a website, a fully functioning website, is one, basketball in Kenya is a niche sport. And I say it's a niche sport because as compared to soccer or football, as we may refer to it right here locally, soccer is global. People know about soccer, everybody knows about it. So it has that natural sort of groove to attract people. It's a global sport. Basketball is as well, but you cannot compare its how can I put it, its magnitude as compared to soccer. So the advantage is basketball is a niche sport right here in Kenya. So it being a niche sport, it gives us an advantage as a federation to task our marketing department with first and foremost trying to target those niche companies. You have niche companies that don't necessarily sell their products on a nationwide scale or something. They have a niche market. So basketball being a niche sport, it's easier for them now, for those companies who are in that niche market, to approach them and tell them, you know what, these are the numbers that we are doing on a day-to-day basis, and this is what we can offer. This is a partnership that we can get into. The start might be relatively slow, but people have to start from somewhere, right? So the KBF website is super important for that one aspect, first and foremost, just basically trying to attract those partnerships to get into the website. That's where they're going to get the information. And also a website creates credibility. We are in the sports business, so PR is everything. PR and your image as a brand is super important in terms of you basically translating that into revenue. So PR is everything. The website gives you credibility, at least when somebody or an international person wants to know what the Kenya Basketball Federation is all about, they easily log onto your website. Secondly, once you've targeted that aspect of basically trying to attract different partners and sponsorships, the second aspect is when you have a website, it's easier for people to access information. Say, for example, their fixtures, say, for example, what transpired the previous week. It's basically very easy. Like if you're watching right now, if you can log on to a website, say for example, the K24 website, it's easier for you. You can see what is transpiring, and the different modules, the different plugins, on what you can tap into if you want to look at this, if you want to look at that. So it makes it a bit easier for stakeholders to access information, and that is why I believe one of the first things that we need to do is to have a very steady and credible running website, a beautiful website where people can get information and it's maintained. We get somebody who fully maintains that and updates the website. When you're updating this constantly, it allows you to attract traction to your website. And once we start building traction onto the website slowly and slowly, we can get to a point where we start translating that and generating that into revenue. It's revenue the Federation didn't have. So if we can get to a point where that simple website is giving you 50,000 shillings, well, guess what? That is money that you didn't have initially. So it's a step, and it's a step towards the right direction. The second solution to the issue surrounding the lack of visibility is live feed games. Now, live feed games are very important in the sense that everybody can not make their way to the gym, right? The live feed games on our websites and different websites of different sporting federations is important because not everybody can make their way to the gymnasium for the basketball action. And this is important because in some way it puts you in a position to alter and structure how you're going to push traffic to the website. And it's a very intentional aspect of any sort of federation or institution, is that you're in a position to drive that particular traffic to the website. And once you drive that particular traffic to the website, you're able to now play from it or take advantage of that as a federation. And I'll give you an example. Basketball games, when you're doing the fixtures, I don't know how it's done. I don't know how our current fixtures secretary, that is Amoko, together with the federation, have been doing it for a long time. I don't know how it's done. But when you're structuring the games and the fixtures of a basketball calendar year, you need to be very intentional about different aspects. You need to know the timelines of people getting their salaries. One, you need to know when somebody's disposable income is compromised or it gets to a point where it's depleted and they cannot offer extra money to other co-curricular activities, which basketball falls there. So there are a lot of dynamics that goes into getting our fixtures, and this helps in the live feed games. I genuinely believe as a federation that we have to get to a point as a federation where at least we have 1 or 2 games every month that are midweek games, and they're streamed through our website. People who are able to go to the gym can do so, but we make it very intentional that at least 1 or 2 games in our basketball calendar every other month is aired live on our website. And the advantage of that is that you now have people in a comfortable position to catch the game wherever they are. Midweek people are still busy here and there, but for you to have that game during the week, in between the week, it puts the federation now in a position to be like, okay, now if we have this game being aired, say for example on Wednesday or Thursday evening, why don't we charge the fixture, right? Why don't we put a plug-in where for you now to catch the game live, you pay 100 shillings or the 200 shillings that you've been paying at the gate on Saturday, but you buy the subscription to watch that game. Can you imagine how many people who can be in a position to just stream that game wherever they are from? We're looking at, I'd say an average of 250 to about 300 people can log in, at least for a start, and watch that fixture if it's a midweek fixture. And that again puts the federation in a good position financially, because all this, it's a sports business. And I believe one of the biggest mistakes we've done as a nation and in terms of handling basketball is we've always treated the game as a game, just as a game. We need to change that thought and treat this as a business. So again, it puts the position in a place to always have some sort of income being generated. as a federation, and if I was to be the Secretary General of this federation, I'd ensure every single day I'm constantly looking for ways that the federation can generate revenue. Because when you generate revenue, it means the federation has an account, or it has a basket where you can go and pluck in funds from to probably avert certain crises that we always have as a federation, where we cannot do certain things for ourselves and we're heavily dependent on the government. So as an SG, I believe one of my key roles would be to ensure that the federation is constantly generating revenue. And this is something that can't be done on a daily basis. You just need to sit with the right people and have the right minds to see to it that it happens. So that is the second solution, which is the live feed games on this website that I believe we should be having. Thirdly, as a federation, we need to be very intentional about on-source revenue. It's something that I mentioned earlier on. The federation heavily depends on funding from the government, and in some instances from well-wishers and people who are probably affiliated with the game at some point initially. So it's important that we are very intentional about creating on-source revenue and being in a position that as a federation we can make money through different channels and avenues. And when you're talking about that, one of the best ways, we have a very loyal fan base. The game has been played by very prominent people in different government positions, and you have fans. Basketball is a very easy game to package for people who've played the game and people who haven't played the game but just love the game, because it's a cool sport. It's sports. It's a game that's affiliated with swag, and it's cool. So it's easy to package that around 1,000 per month for you to catch this. No. Again, it's just sitting down, looking at the algorithm, looking at the semantics and everything, and just coming up with platforms where we can have people basically subscribe to the live feed games and whatever we are doing inside that website and as a federation, and just basically to create excitement. The excitement has to exist from the start of the season all the way to the end of the season, and we need to have a team that is focused on this. You see, the excitement, the basketball excitement shouldn't start on Friday when you're having Equity play Ulinzi. No. The excitement should be there from Sunday to Sunday. In as much as you're not having a game that's played on that day, people shouldn't forget that there's a sport called basketball. And this, the beauty about today is that we have social media. Our social media platforms should be buzzing in days that we are not in a position to host a game or show a game live in that sense. So that is other solution that I'm talking about is on-source revenue. We need to be very intentional about, hey, how are we generating money as a federation, right? I noted down my points so that I don't lose track of them. And in terms of the last solution in creating visibility is, I've called it KBF offices and social media engagement. I've spoken about it, but that was the last point. You see, we need a decent federation that is hosted in a decent office. Do you know where our offices are? We have one of the ugliest offices as a federation in some dingy room in Nyayo. I think I once went there when I was presenting my passport or something of that sort. It's super dingy. I don't know who decided for that to be the location. And it doesn't even create that excitement around basketball, because I ask myself, I usually see sponsorships come in as a federation, and I ask myself, say for example, if the federation was to strike a partnership, how then do they get to a position where they attract that particular partner and tell them, okay, come to location A, B, and C. This is where our offices are located. We can have a sit down. Do we even invite potential clients and partners to our offices? No, I don't believe we don't. Where are the deals signed? Do we have an office where somebody can come in and present an idea and present a complaint? Do we have a clean and decent office that restores that public confidence in a federation that there's something being done in this federation that's right, and I would love for it or for me to be affiliated with it. So we need very decent offices as a federation, and that is something that is easily done. It can be done very easily. For example, it's something that was done recently, but I don't know if the discussions that have gone into the same. What's so hard in approaching an organization or a building and tell them we want to lease this space? It's the Kenya Basketball Federation space where we can have meetings, we can have actual staff working there to promote and grow the game, which will also have a ripple effect in our social media engagement just to basically boost that confidence. So all that is what I mean by visibility. These are some of the few steps that we can get into just to basically start creating that visibility and push the game, decentralize the game away from Nairobi. And the only way you do that is when you create visibility outside of Nairobi. You create visibility outside of the people who play the game in lower tier leagues and come to support the Premier League. No, that you need to push through that ceiling and go decentralize the game so that we can reach as many people as possible, and that will have a ripple effect in terms of creating that excitement very quickly and easily. With that said, I'd love to go to the second module. I said I was going to try and keep this in under an hour or 1 hour, 15 minutes or 30 minutes. I don't want to take too much of your time because it's also a bit late. Now we've handled visibility. I told you we had 3 modules. The second module is league structure. And this is, we are having an AGM on the 23rd. I believe this will take center stage of those discussions because the league structure is a big part of our problem as a country in terms of handling basketball. The simple basis of this module is when I look at the league, how the league is structured, I'll take an example of the Premier League, both male and female. For the male Premier League, you can't have a league that you call a Premier League when only give or take 4 out of the 12 teams are creating excitement in the league. That means 8 teams do not create excitement. 8 teams do not give somebody the reason to wake up and dedicate their time to basketball. 8 teams are basically a waste of time for the 4 teams. It's a sad and painful, bitter conversation to have, but I'm a very logical human being, and I believe for you to actually realize change in whatever thing you're doing, you have to be open to change in itself, and often or not, change is very bitter and painful. So currently, how our league is structured, both for male and women Premier League, and of course with those other teams as well, we only have about 4 teams on the side of the Premier League, which I'll state, that is Equity Dumas, KPA, Tuende, and Ulinzi to some extent, right? USAU are doing pretty well because they came back to the league. But ideally, these are the 4 teams that have a very core and strong base that create excitement around the league. If they're not playing against other relatively strong teams in the league, then the league is dead. Nobody, allow me to use some language, nobody gives 2 shits about those are the teams that are playing. Again, it's a sad conversation to have. I belong to the Strathmore fraternity, very, very loyal to the Strathmore fraternity, but they fall in that league where you don't necessarily have people that have this loyal fan base. People don't take the games as serious as they need to be taken. It's because we have a league that has only 4 teams that are creating excitement, the other 8 teams are not. And for the women is the same case. I think about 3 or so teams are the strong teams, the other teams are dead. Solution 1, and I'll begin with the women. Let me just do something here. I'll begin with the Women's League. Now, when you look at the Women's League, one fact that we have to be alive to is that we do not have as many talented women basketball players as compared to the men. And this situation is not exclusive to Kenya. This is something that happens globally. Relatively, you have a situation where men provide a more talented pool of players as compared to the women. It's even worse for us as a third world country because we are not level of, say, for example, the United States with WNBA. For us, it's even worse. So we have a small, concentrated pool of talent when it comes to the Women Premier League. So the first solution to that is, one, you need to shorten the league. The Women's League, it's too long for nothing. It's too long. 90% of the games are boring games. And I can say they're, let me not use the word useless. I'm just saying they're boring games that do not add value to the league. And I say so because the talent pool is not as big as compared to the Men's Premier League. So when you look at that situation where the league is too long, the first solution is shorten the league. You shorten the league, you create excitement around the league. People know that this is the Women Premier League. It's played during this duration of time. So one, the biggest mistake we've been doing as a country, the Women's League is too long. So the first thing that I would do as an SG is to start the conversations around shortening the league for the women. One. Two, in terms of the Women League, don't play it at the same time you're playing the basketball, the men's basketball leagues. Don't play it. Separate the two entities. It needs to have its own time. And the beauty about this is that when the men's league is not running, you have that traction. All of that traction is centered on the women's league. That is why you need to separate the two. The women's league can't be played at the same time the men's league is playing. Is because we don't have a huge pool of talented players. And secondly, you eat away from the women's league because you're not necessarily directing all that traffic, all that partnership into the women's league. So that is the second thing. It shouldn't be played at the same time that the men's league is being played. And last but not least, cut off the teams. Reduce the teams to about 6 or 8 teams. I'd say 6. That way, all this talent, all amazing women talent is centered in the Premier League, right? And it will apply to the men as well. I'll get to that in a few. So cut and reduce the teams to about 6 teams. Now, what that does, it ensures that the talent pool of the women across that is spread, because you might have a talented player playing for Footprints, you might have a talented player playing for Storms, one of them is spread here, 2 of them are in USAU, Flames, 2 of them are here, so it's scattered. And that is why you have a situation where a team wins a game with the scores of 87 to 28. Who's going to come and watch that game? That's not a game to watch. You know very well this team is going to be beaten 87 to 28. That's not a team that even deserves to be in the Premier League. And it's because we've spread the talent, we've scattered the talent, we've not concentrated the talent. So one, in terms of solving the issues surrounding the league structure from the Women Premier League is, one, shorten the season, make it shorter. 2, separate the two entities. Don't play at the same time that the men are doing their thing. Separate the two so that you drive the traffic in terms of viewership, sponsorship, all that towards the women when they begin their season. And thirdly, cut the number of teams participating in the Premier League, right? I'll get to the solution of those who will be cut off later on as I fully put it together with the men. Let's get to the men's side. Now, when you're speaking about the men's team, again, the biggest issue with the men's Premier League is, I believe one of, if not the biggest issues, is the non-sponsored teams, right? The non-sponsored teams, it's a sad thing to say, but they drag the league. The league cannot move. We have scenarios where a league is running and close to 6, 7 teams have not paid their leagues. And that is a big issue. A league that we expect to turn and revolutionize cannot operate like that. And of course, I've had discussions and issues surrounding varsity teams. Those are the likes of Strathmore University, USAU, UON participating in the Premier League. Some of them are saying that we should have them playing in a different league for varsities and universities. I genuinely believe we don't have the capacity to do that because we don't have as many teams that can fully participate in the Premier League, which we need to develop and get to a point where it will have a ripple effect in every other thing that is basketball related in the country. So I don't think we have the capacity to do that, to separate the varsity teams away from the Premier League, because one, they pay their league fees in time. I don't know about other universities, but I don't think Strathmore University has ever had an issue with the Kenya Basketball Federation in terms of paying the league fee upfront to allow the federation to basically plan better and move better. So that is the one advantage, the first advantage that those varsity teams bring to the league. So that is the thing. The non-sponsored teams and the varsity teams have been a very big issue, of course, in terms of also just coming up with the fixtures. I believe that can be sorted out. And here is how you sort it out. We have too many leagues. Again, when you come to the men's side, we have the Premier League, Division 1, Division 2, and I think NBA. Why? Why do we have so many leagues? For what? Again, it's not bad to have those many leagues because they act as avenues to improve the game, improve talent and all that. I don't say it's a bad thing. But we have to not lie to ourselves that we have the capacity to have those leagues. So that's why I'm saying we don't need those many leagues, at least as of now. And here's the reason. You find a team, say for example, a team like Stanbic Bank. Stanbic Bank has two of my closest basketball friends, two of my closest friends from way back, that is Ongoro. Joseph Ongoro is literally one of, if not the top 10 shooters in the country. Perfect flow, perfect talent, perfect basketball player. You have the likes of Lugasi playing in Stanbic, right? And I ask myself, this is raw, pure talent that can really boost the Premier League. These are people that attract masses. They can have that gym filled every single time they play. They have the potential of creating that social media buzz and wave. Once we get into the mechanisms of boosting our social media platforms, they have that. So I ask myself, why is the team like, say for example, oh, my phone has just gone off. Maybe I just ask my partner here, Ian, probably find a way to charge this so that I can track the comments. Sorry for that, my phone just went off. So as I was saying, I asked myself, why do you have a team like Stanbic playing in Division 2? Again, why do you have a team like NBK playing in that lower tier league? It's a good thing ABSA was promoted. Why do you have those fully sponsored teams with very good talent playing in those low tier leagues? Why? Here is a solution. And remember, as I said at the beginning of this live session, is my ideas are not cast on stone. You're open to chime in and just probably throw those ideas my way. We can see how to work this out. So I asked myself, why? Why do we have those fully sponsored teams with beautiful talent playing in those low tier leagues? It shouldn't be the case. Solution one, when it comes to the men's Premier League, don't start the season before we do this. Have a conversation with all these teams, the fully sponsored teams. Have a conversation with them. Try and assess, get to know which ones are fully sponsored. Others might be affiliated to corporates, but they're not as good. But have a very structured conversation with those teams that are fully sponsored. And when I talk about full sponsorship, I know that they can honor their away games. They can fully pay their league fee in time, and they can do certain things that can help us run as a federation without getting into the nitty-gritties of the issues that affect each and every team. Have a structured conversation with them and make an intentional decision. As an SG, I would propose that we have, one, a closed league. Nothing like relegation. We don't have relegation. We don't have relegation. We don't have promotion. What that does is, you see, when you're having relegation to some extent depletes the talent in a league, especially for a league that's trying to grow and get to semi-professional and professional standards. It depletes the talent because you find that a team that had a very good team, things did not go their way. During that season, they end up being relegated. Now, you've depleted the Premier League of pure talent that could have been used to package the brand better and push the game. So cut off that issue of relegating and promoting teams. We do away with that. That's the first thing. The Premier League has 12 teams. We can, after having that conversation with those fully sponsored teams in the low tier leagues, have a conversation on increasing or maintaining. We could go to 14. Yeah, we could go to 14 teams, right? Or even 16, I don't know. 14 is a fair number. But close the league, no relegation. One. Number two, once you do that, of course, we're going to have people who are going to feel aggrieved. They're going to be feel left out. Worry not. You're still going to play and participate in this beautiful game that we love. But once we close off the league with these teams that are fully sponsored and boarded, I'm assured that I'll pay my referees in time. I'm assured anytime that we have a late fixture, there'll always be lights at Nyayo. I'm assured that I have money to some extent to contribute to instances where we cannot aid certain players when you have international assignments. At least I have money in my pool or my bank account to see to it how we can salvage this situation. So basically, first and foremost, we've sorted the financial deficit that has existed in the federation for a long time. One. Number two, we've ensured that the top cream de la cream are onboarded onto the Premier League, and we move from a position where we have 4 teams creating excitement in the league and the other teams are basically nonsensical games, for lack of a better word. And now we have a league that provides us with 90% excitement. At least we know 2 or 3 teams a week, but the other teams in the league are fairly as good as these other teams. So that is the conversation that we need to have. Close the league, on board these other full sponsored teams. Now, for the people who are left behind, we ensure that all these 14 teams, the next point in the league, we have affiliate teams of these teams. And these affiliate teams are the guys who are going to play in Division 1. Division 1 is basically going to act as a talent pool for the Premier League. That way, the Premier League never loses its value. The value keeps on going up, and we restore that word premier. Premier. Right now, it's not premier. I go to watch some games in Nyaya, I'm like, what is this? What are we doing here? And that is the difference we have, say, for example, in a country like Uganda. Most of their fixtures are very exciting fixtures. Super difficult. Even if a team is, say, for example, if Twende is playing a team like Strath, we know that Twende is stronger. They could win this game. But Strathmore is a fairly strong game. So we are looking at instances where games are ending at 69-60. We're looking at, and that is what makes a league premier. That is what has a ripple effect in making me allocate time for basketball over the weekend. So that is the solution for the men. Cut off that issue pertaining to relegation, on board these teams, and make the teams fully registered sponsored clubs, right? Thirdly, when you're going into fixtures, when you're looking at the issue on fixtures, here's how you sort the fixtures. The varsity teams can remain in the league, but every team, upon registering before we get into a new league, you have to provide the federation with a standard 15 fixture team. So this cuts off this nonsense of Strathmore, UON, of these varsity teams reaching out to federation officials and telling them, you know what, we have exams or push our fixtures. No, you are inconveniencing other clubs that are fully focused on their games. So when these teams are onboarded as clubs, and we know very well that, you know what, these are the teams that are participating. We've given the fixture, and the fixtures are not changed anyhowly. We are now in a position where we can say, you know what, I mean, if you can't honor your fixture on this date, unless it's very, very, very serious and unavoidable, that is what we need to have. And that is how you sort this issue around women and basketball teams in terms of the league structure. I believe that is what has been bedeviling us, and I know as we go on with time, we have ways and issues to sort this. The fixtures is a very delicate aspect. I'll tackle it in part 2, but I've just given you hints of how fixtures, because it allows them as companies and partners to now focus on those fixtures and on those dates, and in their calendar, they're able now to plan and partner with you. So that is why the fixtures discussion cannot be had easily, because it touches on various aspects of the game, and that is what I believe should be done. It will be in part 2 as we progress on and continue with this conversation, even as the days progress on. So in terms of league structure and visibility, those are the things that I'd ensured I do as a Secretary General immediately I get into office. And finally for tonight, because I'd broken down this into 3 modules, is we need to have a very intentional conversation on our KBF constitution. All that I've said can be done, but it has to be guided by a constitution. The current constitution that we have is super retrogressive. And when I say it's retrogressive, it doesn't mean that the whole document is bad. No, I constantly keep on going through the document just to understand it so that I can have issues on my fingertips. And it's not a bad constitution. I'd give it a 60%. It's a good document. The problem is it's retrogressive in the sense that we've treated that constitution as law. It's like the laws that were written on the stone tablets that Moses had. A constitution is a living document. That is why it's open to interpretation and changes as the days go by, because life changes, we evolve, so it has to evolve with time. I believe our document hasn't evolved with time. So we need to have a very intentional conversation from day one when we embark on duty, is to see how, in as much as we're doing whatever we are doing as a federation, the conversation, there's a team and a committee that's focused on how we are ironing out the issues in our constitution that we believe are retrogressive and need to change. In as much as we're talking about that, I believe one of the issues that needs to change in the constitution is, again, the structure of leadership. My biggest concern is, as a leader, one of the things that I take pride in, if I'm given the responsibility to lead, is that I want to be held accountable. I want you to have a channel and a position where you can tell me, Allan, you said this is going to be done, what's not happening? Accountability is the sole basis. It's literally the recipe to success if you're doing anything in life, right? I need to have my stakeholders, the players, the other people, hold me to account and tell me this was supposed to happen, this is not what's supposed to happen. And the current constitution hasn't allowed for that. And I say this because even the president in our country right now, he is the president. And if you actually have a deep down look in the constitution, he's basically a ceremonial president, at least by the constitution standards, because most of the things and most of the powers that the previous president, Mwai Kibaki, had, and Moi, he doesn't have them. Why? He's guided by law. He's guided by the constitution, and some of his powers, in as much as he has veto powers, it's clipped. You have to clip powers of leaders so that they remain in that realm where they are there to serve. And that's one thing I take very dear and I take so much pride in, that I love accountability. I want you to tell me when something is bad, Allan, you're messing up. When something is good, you're doing the right thing. So I believe the Constitution hasn't allowed for that, because currently our Constitution has the president and, by extension, the executive committee, the judge, the jury, and the executor. It's either their way or the highway, and that cannot happen. It can't be that way. When you have a federation being led by a president and, by extension, the executive committee, the judge, the juries, and the executors, then that we're not doing anything. Nothing can be achieved, because I'll give an example. I had a meeting with one of the stakeholders in basketball, and of course I'll not mention names for obvious reasons, but there was an example that this personality gave, and they were in a certain meeting, and he got word that something was going to affect a program that was currently ongoing. But since the who's and the who's in the federation felt like that was not run by them, they weren't involved in that. And I believe there are mechanisms that should be put in place to see that certain programs are done and channeled. It's because the federation hasn't created that channel. That is why most people do things behind closed doors. But in as much as that is the situation, as a president, you need to assess the situation and say, okay, you guys might have not approached this the right way, but what are you doing? What are the benefits? What can we do to improve this? What can you do to improve the federation? Those are the things that we should do. So in that meeting, the word was going, shut that down. Somebody, he tried to probably put in a word and see how, but it was no, it's final. That is what needs to happen. Now you see that is a problem, because once the president or the chairman says that it's a done deal. No, 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 no. It cannot work like that. The president and the chairman and the bosses need to have a say, but the say needs to be guided within law so that you accommodate every other person's idea and probably have mechanisms in places where we can be in a position where, in as much as you disagree with something, somebody might agree with it and a vote is taken and that supersedes that. Which brings me to my last and final point in terms of fixing our KBF constitution, because this is a complex constitution. That's why I've just basically rushed through it, and I'm also looking at time I want to be done in the next 5, is the way to fix any institution, any federation, any company is to have fully functioning and well-enabled ExCos. And when I say ExCos, I mean executive committees, which I believe in the KBF constitution are referred to as, are they standing committees? Yes, we do have them. I think the name is just different. I don't know. I think it's a standing committee where we have the finance, we have the national team or something. I think that's it, yeah. So when you have executive committees that have some certain type of powers, it does away with this situation where you have the executive committee and the president and the bosses basically running the show. Because fixtures, say for example, you have a very well-enabled fixtures executive committee, that fixtures cannot just be changed. We cannot just wake up today and say that a game has been cancelled. No, it has to go through a procedure. It has to go through channels and this and this, and that is why proper planning is needed. So in that conversation of altering the KBF constitution, we need that conversation, intentional conversation around enabling the executive committees to have some sort of power, so that in the event that we realize any sort of malice coming from the bosses, it can be clipped by the executive committees and they have the final say. And I think those are just, from the top of my head, some of the things that we can look into in terms of constitutional review, so that in as much as I'm talking about these are the beautiful things that we can do, we have a constitution that guides us and we have consequences for those who do not abide by the constitution. That brings me to the end of part 1 of this conversation in terms of basketball, of me telling you what I can do to you as an aspiring Secretary General if you give me that opportunity to lead when the time comes. Again, I repeat, I'm not able to control certain things. The Federation saw it fit in their wisdom or lack of it that the elective AGM wasn't to be had this year. So whenever that happens, I'll continue trying to raise my voice and trying to put people in a position where we can basically have them feel that this is what needs to happen, right? I'll continually do this as I wait for that time when they'll see it fit for the Federation to have an election, because I believe democracy is a beautiful thing. People need to be given a chance to elect people they believe can do something for them. And that is why I chose today, because for a long time, we've been talking about these things on Facebook, on other social media platforms, but we've not been very intentional about speaking to the people directly and telling them the how. How can we do it? So I've begun that process and step of telling you how we can do this. Change is very hard. Change is very difficult, but it's a beautiful thing once you embrace it, because all that I'm focused on as a leader is impact. Impact, impact, impact. Because I couldn't have been where I am today if somebody did not make an impact in a certain field and inspired me to be who I am today. So it's through our actions, it's through what we do to impact the game of basketball that we are going to raise men, not even just sports personalities, but men who can pick after us and continue growing the game. That is why it's very important as stakeholders, the people who have the power to make that change in a federation, to wake up, because the people who are in office right now, I don't believe it has anything to do with their character. I don't believe it has anything to do with who they are. They're probably competent in other fields of whatever they're doing. But for the time that you've entrusted them to run this federation, they've expressed their incompetence in 1 or 2 areas. And they could be doing beautiful things, but again, their mistake is closing that channel where people can communicate, where you can communicate what you're doing, where you can be held accountable, and people see that there's work being done. So that needs to change if in any case you're going to ever witness change. But in as long as we keep on sitting down and not necessarily raising concerns and players are comfortable and we continue being selfish, the game is just going to stagnate because the people who you've entrusted to move the game are comfortable with whatever status quo is, because I believe they have nothing to lose. But for myself as a young aspiring leader, I have a lot to lose. A lot is on the line. I'm putting my name on the line. So I'm investing my time and energy to see to it that those who contribute to the success and the enjoyment that the people get, which are the players, get something from the league. In our next session, part 2, I'll be talking about getting into monetization of the league, how we can do it. Partners have been able to talk to, people have been able to bring on board, and they assured me that, Allan, if you get A, B, and C into office, we're ready to work with you. It's about building relationships around trust, and that is one thing that I've been able to build for the past couple of years that I've been in the corporate world. My main concern is just creating a beautiful environment for this game of ours. With that said, can I use yours? Yeah, let me, I want to see if I can gather something and get something online. Don't worry, I'm communicating with Ian, is part of my team. So we've been doing this together. So my phones went off. I cannot track your statements and all that. So let me see if I can remember. Yeah? Ganyo? Your phone? Let me use yours. Yeah, I just want to track and see what's going on. Probably on Facebook or something then. Because the IG went off, right? Yeah, so let me just see what is. On the Facebook live stream, because I'm not able to log my laptop to the network. I don't know why. I seriously don't know why, but just quickly, guys, 3 minutes, we finish this. FB? Nothing? No, I know there's something, it's just... No worries. Let me see. Let me just try and see if I can connect this. Even sweating, huh? Let's see if this is going to work. Oh, it's gone through. Hallelujah. All right, let me just log into Facebook and see if we can get hold of you guys real quick. For those who've bared with me, I mean, this is also recorded, so I'll put the link and people can follow on the conversation for those who are not able to join. But for those who are at least live, I believe you've got an opportunity to listen to what I have to say. Oh, I'm feeling super hot. Let's see. Okay. You're still live, right? All right, let's see here. Okay. Oh, good stuff. Hallelujah. Well, Nderitu had a lot to say. Nderitu is one of the basketball stakeholders, and he has a show. Oh, my sound is off? No, I think it came back. I think it was when. But I think that's it. I don't know. I'll track and try and see if we can fix that. But good peoples, that's just about it. And see you on the next one. We'll try and put out the notice as soon as possible. And God bless you. God bless our country, Kenya. We continue to mourn the passing of our CDF, Ogola, alongside all those other people and military personnel that lost their lives. So may their souls continue to rest in eternal peace. And God bless you and God bless our country, Kenya. Basketball will change. We'll do better. Trust me, we'll do better. It will take a bit of time to iron out things, but by the time we're done with this, it will be nothing but beauty in the game of basketball. And I'll one day sit somewhere on my pouch as an old chap just saying, you know what, we did good. Thank you. See you on the next one. Have a beautiful evening.